Hello and welcome to Comedian versus Economist. My name's Adam and we're joined as always by my little older brother and real life economist, Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
Yeah, g'day, Adam. How you going?
Doing really well, thank you. Hey, don't forget you can send us an email if you'd like to, cve@equitymates.com, just like Stephen did. Stephen asked, are you happy with your current courier or freight provider? Stephen, we really are, thank you. But it means a lot that you thought to check in, so I appreciate that. Massive show coming up. As always, we're looking at charts. If you want to follow along, you'll find them on Facebook and Instagram at CVE Podcast, as well as on the CVE page of the Equity Mates website, equitymates.com/CVE. But Thomas, absolute bumper show coming up. US consumer confidence data is out, causing economists to wonder, is what we do completely pointless? And the price of gold is rising higher than Steve Hooker at the 2008 Olympics. A little pole vault reference for you all. He was a pole vaulter who won gold, Thomas. That's why, that's why that works on multiple levels.
Right.
Gold going up, pole vaulters go up. Things never get better once you start explaining them. McDonald's has stopped creating new stores. How will this affect the job prospects of Ronald Grimace, the Hamburglar, Birdie, and Officer Big Mac? And where have all the good bands gone? In fact, where have all the bands gone, period? Solo artists are dominating, like a man with a mustache kayaking down a waterfall. Solo man. But first, Thomas, Trump is cracking down on fentanyl supply. Why?
Yes. Wow. I'm sorry, my head's still reeling from the kind of complexities in those intros.
It was a lot.
It was a lot, yeah.
Multiple layers in each one that you just had
People just come here for simple economic analysis.
I know.
I feel like we're stretching people.
They get soft drink ads from 1986. No reference is too old for my intros. Thomas, fentanyl.
Fentanyl, yeah. Well, just quickly, there's a lot about fentanyl. So fentanyl made that the cornerstone of his demands. So Trump made fentanyl the cornerstone of his demands for Mexico and Canada when he's talking about tariffs. He wanted them to stop importing fentanyl or like crack down on the trade. And I think Canada was like, "What are you talking about?" But Mexico was like, "Oh yeah, there's quite a bit coming from over the border from our way." Right. But I had a chart here which I thought was interesting, which is looking at fentanyl overdoses in America. And fentanyl now kills more Americans than meth, cocaine, and heroin combined.
Wow.
So, yeah. Combined. So it's over it's about 70,000 deaths. I think 2022 or 23 was the last year we've got data for. Right. But yeah, I mean, up from like about 5,000 in 2015. So yeah, that's a very worrying trend there, up and away.
Because I did see fentanyl I did a little bit of research. It's 100 times more potent than morphine and 50 times more potent than heroin.
Wow.
So you can imagine if that gets presumably, a lot of this fentanyl supply is all just completely unregulated too, right? Like this is not like stopping fentanyl coming into hospitals because there's valid use cases for fentanyl, right? Like it's used to treat pain and all that sort of stuff. So this is just the unregulated kind of, back of a truck coming in.
Yeah.
But so that's pretty dangerous.
Wow, I didn't realize 50 times more than heroin. It is eating some heroin. Heroin overdoses are down, but I presume that's just fentanyl cutting its turf.
It out. Yeah, right. And Trump wants to block it coming in. He just...
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is why it's interesting. So this is like what they call deaths of despair. They sort of got bundled together and like with suicide, but then drug overdose, alcohol overdose, and saying that that's been on the rise in America since the 2010s, and particularly bad in Rust Belt communities. And it was sort of tied with unemployment. And so J.D. Vance, who's the vice president, wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy, and which sort of launched him into the Republican glitterati. But the basic idea there was that, when all these jobs went offshore, when American industry offshored, all these communities got hollowed out, and in into that void came overdoses and drug overdoses and alcohol and suicide and all these deaths of despair.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So the cracking down on fentanyl is, I think, Trump sort of fulfilling a pledge that he made all the way back in 2016, which is like looking after these communities. So
wouldn't looking after them be creating jobs though? Isn't that the like?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Like they got hollowed out. Industries got hollowed out, and so that's when these things filled that void. And so, like, great, like, absolutely no objection to blocking fentanyl coming in, but wouldn't the bigger picture plan be to create jobs in those areas?
Yeah. I mean, that's it. But that's exactly the tariff plan, right?
Right.
Like,
okay.
The whole point of tariffs is to bring American industry back on shore and protect American industry. So yeah, like they're two sides of the same coin for Trump.
He's a puzzle, isn't he, Trump? I mean, he's like, because like there wasn't long ago he was advocating like drinking hydroxychloroquine to cure
COVID.
cure COVID. Yeah, like drink bleach or whatever it was to cure COVID. But now he's cracking down like cracking down on fentanyl. It's very good. But he's also cracking down on like paper straws.
Yeah.
I just can't get a read on the guy. I just like some great initiatives mixed in with just some bizarre stuff. Like, did you hear his comment about paper straws? It was like, I'm sure the sharks will be fine with a few bits of plastic floating around in the ocean. They're big sharks, little bits of plastic and no problem for them. Like,
yeah. Oh my God. It's wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to see his like to-do list in the morning of his like top, like this priority order doesn't seem to exist. It's just like this eclectic random mix of things I want to do that all have equal weighting. I'm going to block fentanyl coming in and, this straw.
Yeah.
How good. I'll write an executive order. Such top of mind.
I feel like Trump makes a lot more sense if you think about him like a World Wrestling Federation character. And it's just like, just big gestures of character development. How would Trump, the wrestler, think about straws? Bring back plastic. Like...
All right, Thomas, US consumer confidence data came out. What did we learn about US consumer confidence?
Yeah. I mean, it's tanking. The chart I've got here is interesting because it's looking at consumer confidence. So consumer confidence is slowly coming back, but there are huge shifts in confidence depending on whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. So yeah, Democratic consumer. If you're a Democrat, consumer confidence is the worst since the GFC.
Right.
So you
Trump
just think,
got in, you didn't vote for him. You just imagine it's all going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but potentially it's like a soft coup that's happening through the Democratic lens.
Right.
And maybe that's true. You just don't like, Elon Musk rocking up with hard drives and taking over the treasury is like, it could be a coup. He could be like cleansing it out. It could also be a coup. It's just hard to know at this stage. Yeah. So he's like, right. So
perfectly normal behavior for billionaires, isn't it? Just
rock up with some goons and a bunch of hard drives to the US Treasury. That's fine and normal.
Nothing to see here. No, you don't need to know anybody's name. Just ignore us. We're just doing some stuff.
Just pretend like we're not here. Yeah, right.
Go about your day.
Yeah. So if you're looking at that, if you're a Democrat looking at that, you think that's a soft coup in action. If you're a Republican, you're thinking like, finally, someone's cracking down on government waste and getting the economy back on track. So Democrat consumer confidence is down 50% on where it was before the election.
Yeah.
Republican consumer confidence is up like close to 50%, almost the same.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we're flat across the board.
Yeah, that's why like overall it's sort of like not too much happening. I mean, there's a good chunk of voters who are neither Democrat nor Republican, in the middle. But yeah, they're like, oh, let's just see what happens. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, right.
I just think it's really. I mean, one, I think it points to just the different realities that people live in nowadays. Like depending
Mm.
on your media, like yeah, like Elon Musk taking over the treasury. Depending on the media you consume, you
Mm.
have a vastly different interpretation of what's happening there,
Yeah, yeah, true.
and
Um,
then your
does it also
reality is just very different.
speak to the polarization? Like, it seems like people are so much further at one end of the spectrum on either
Mm,
Democrats or Republican, and
yeah, yeah.
so they really buy in, or they really, I don't know, the opposite of buy in, buy against, sell, maybe.
So
Buy or sell, by the way, back on Equity Mates. Check that
hey,
out. So
seamless.
seamless, yeah. But yeah, is
Yeah,
that part of it too? Like, people aren't really thinking. I don't know,
yeah.
having a balanced approach to it. They're more going like all in or all out.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like I think part of it is the demonization. Like politics is about demonization now. It's not only that
Mm,
I'm the best candidate, it's that the other candidate is the antichrist, and if they get in, it's going to be a complete disaster.
yeah.
You know. So there's that on both sides of politics. That I mean, that's just how politics flows nowadays. I had an interesting chart a while ago. I think share it here, but like the proportion of Americans who think that the presidential election matters is at record
Mm,
highs. Like people used to be a bit like, yeah, mate, like it doesn't matter too much. Now it's like this changes. Every election changes everything.
yeah, right. Yeah, interesting. And there's some inflation data too, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
how
Well,
how do we think about the inflation? Like,
well,
is this inflation expectations?
yeah, this is inflation expectation. That's the other interesting thing in this data, which is sort of why I pulled it out, is that
Mm,
inflation expectations have rocketed
yeah.
in the most recent month and at the highest levels in 2 or 3 years. And a lot of policy making, a lot of the things that create inflation are forward looking. So, like wage bargaining, for example, you're kind of trying to look a year ahead, 2 years ahead, and think, what do I need to be able to maintain a real wage relative to inflation?
Mm,
So, what people think about where inflation going tends to create a sort of self fulfilling prophecy to some extent.
mm. But who
So
are we
that,
asking here? Who are they asking in terms of the expectations? Is this Joe Public, or is it like
yeah,
economists? Is it,
no. This is Joe Public. This is
if
the
someone asked
University of
me,
Michigan Consumer Confidence.
if someone asked me what my inflation expectations were, I'd struggle to come up with anything more than like, meh, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
this,
yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of like recency bias there in the sense that people have been talking about inflation,
yeah,
tariffs being inflationary, so that people are that's sort of shifting things.
yeah,
But it's also you kind of rely on large numbers. So like a lot of surveys go like if you just survey enough people, it's like the jelly bean jar thing, right?
mm,
Any individual's guess about how many jelly beans are in the jar is going to be wrong. But if you get 500 people to guess, the
mm,
average guess ends up being pretty close to the right number.
right, interesting.
And yeah, and so it's kind of they call it the law of large numbers in statistics. And so it's sort of true. Like you have enough people going like I've got no idea, 50%.
Mm,
And other people go I've got no idea, negative 50%. It all sort of balances out, and you get something that tracks something that's pretty reasonable. If you look at the history of the series on the chart there,
mm,
it tracks actual inflation reasonably well.
yeah, okay,
And that's
yeah,
why it's
right,
interesting you get this big movement is because like, well, in the past it has tracked actual inflation relatively well.
mm,
And so it is interesting that it's de-anchored. And it's a worry. That would be a worry for the Fed
yeah,
looking if inflation's a de-anchoring. Because the central bank often talks about, inflation expectations are well anchored. That's always in the RBA statement of monetary policy.
mm,
We can be a bit relaxed because people aren't expecting inflation to get out of hand. If inflationary expectations de-anchor, then that's a bit of a problem.
mm, interesting. Yeah, right. I learned something. This is a bit
Yeah.
like the same thing, like when they talk about if you get enough monkeys together in a room with typewriters, they'll eventually produce like War and Peace or something.
Yeah. Yes. No, this is sort of a different thing, but let's say yes. Well done.
Just like to tie it back, Thomas, to something that people can relate to.
Yep.
All right, Thomas, gold going gangbusters. What's the story with gold?
Yeah, it's on a tearaway. So it's up almost 50% on where it was in January 2024. So over 12 months, huge gains. It's up 11% this year alone.
Right.
So yeah, stonking result.
It's no crypto, but sure.
Well, hey, Bitcoin's up to 2.3% this year. So
Oh, okay. See? Told you. It's better than crypto.
Up. Yeah, gold's the best performing over the past 12 months. Gold's the best performing asset class in the world.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, after trading in a pretty narrow range for quite a few years, it's just mooned in the past 12 months.
The big question: why? Why? Is it mooned?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, gold has typically been your hedge against everything. Kind of like there was an interesting quote from Danny Moses, who was from Front Point Partners. He was one of the guys who made a heap of money off the stuff that was in the Big Short by shorting the mortgage market in the US. Mm-hmm. So he's going, I've been gold bug for a long time. To me, it's effectively going short on everything that could go wrong.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's sort of, and so it's your disaster hedge, it's your inflation hedge, it's your chaos hedge. That's typically how it's been.
Trump
and I think
hedge.
like Trump hedge. Well, that's it. It's a Trump hedge now. Like people are looking at like this Trump story could go anywhere.
Yeah.
Could be super inflationary if tariffs get a hold. Could be geopolitically destabilizing if he literally just buys Gaza and takes it over. Like so, there's a lot of chaos there, and in that everyone's going like, oh, maybe gold's not a bad thing to own. And so that's part of it. The other part is that central banks have been on a buying binge. So they bought a record 1,082 tons of gold in 2022.
Making a lot of jewelry.
The central banks. Yeah. RBA souvenir.
A new range of economic bracelets and neck chains.
Yeah. RBA 50 years anniversary coin.
Commemorative coin.
Selling it on late night TV.
Right.
Yeah, but 1,000 tons,
that's a lot
across the world. Yeah, it's a lot. And that's been a big lift. And I've got an interesting chart here, which is looking at gold as a percent of central bank reserves.
Yeah.
So back in the 50s, gold was like 70% of central bank reserves.
That's crazy, eh? That's like 70. That can't be right. They had 70% of their reserves were in gold.
Yeah. I mean, that's before the US abandoned the gold standard. So,
right. What was that?
Oh, that was
what
the
idea.
idea.
In gold.
No. Like the currency was the amount of money supply in the system was tethered to the amount of gold in the reserves by
like
a certain ratio. Sort of. Let's say yes. Yeah, sort of, but not one for one.
No, okay.
So the idea was that the US dollar was backed by an actual amount of gold. And
okay.
then Nixon came in and went like, let's just ditch that idea and let the US dollar be backed by nothing. Right. And this is one of the arguments for Bitcoin, though it's not a very good argument. So it was like 70% of reserves back in the 50s, and then it dropped down to 25% with the abandoning of the gold standard, then got down to 5% in like 2015 or 2010, around that mark. Yeah. But it's now picked up to 15%. And the thing that's driving that, it seems to be that when in 2022, when the US sort of effectively cut Russia out of the financial system, a lot of countries went like, oh, whoa, we can just be cut out of the financial system. Maybe we need to protect ourselves against that. And so buying gold was seen as a way to do that. And so one of the big buyers of gold has been China.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, where do they buy it from? Just the market.
The market, I guess.
The gold market.
Gold market. Well,
like who? Well, yeah, I don't know. It's like it's a finite resource, right? So
yeah. I mean, more
everyone can't stockpile gold, can they? I guess enough.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain amount, right? Like, Yeah, I think there's a fixed amount of it, and everyone's clamoring to get their hands on it. And then that's why why prices are lifting, because you can't bring more gold into the market. Some
Yeah.
gold comes in each year, but not in a major way.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
There's something like, I've read the stats. There's something like only four. I wish I had this stat, but it's something like only 4 swimming pools worth of gold on the planet.
Wow.
Like if you got all the gold in the world together in one place, it's something you could physically look at. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a mountain of it.
We had that during the Sydney Olympics. We had swimming pools of gold, Thomas. The team did so well.
It was a good.
All right, Thomas, we've hit peak McDonald's.
Yeah.
What's going on with McDonald's restaurants?
Yeah, well, we've got a chart here that shows that McDonald's
Restaurants in double quotes.
yes, yeah. No, the number of McDonald's restaurants in America has been falling. Yeah, since 2015.
Right.
They've been and quite 2021 saw quite a big fall.
What's causing them to fall
500. I
Lack
don't
of
know.
structural integrity in the initial build.
Construction materials are very expensive these days. Had to cut a few corners.
Just stores falling over. Right.
Yeah. I mean, my guess is it's sort of changed. I mean, guess it's saturation. Like there is probably a limit to how many McDonald's you can have in America.
Yeah.
But
go back 20 years, no one would have believed that. They would have said, no, impossible. We cannot have enough McDonald's.
Yeah, I mean, in the 90s, there was a huge build out. In 1995, they added over 1,100 restaurants in a single year. Yeah. Yeah, so they were just pumping them out back then. And then the rate of increase has been coming down. And then, 2015, it started going negative. So starting to close some of them down. Yeah. So I think
maybe it's the whole supersize thing as well. Like you just get more per McDonald's when you go and order. You don't, you just load up, get like a massive chips, massive drink. You don't need to go to another McDonald's for a good 10 Ks. It's sorted.
Yeah,
You sustained your McDonald's craving for a lot longer per store. If you were doing a trip across America.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, let's not rule that out. Let's leave that one on the table.
All right.
Yeah. But I think the interesting thing.
Theories?
I think it's sort of shifting preferences probably, but I also think like with the drug loss, with the weight loss drugs that are coming on online now, like I think you'd expect that number's going to keep falling. So I think we're probably well past peak McDonald's.
Really? What? That doesn't make sense to me. Like if I was struggling with weight and there was a miracle weight loss drug cure that came out, I'd be like, how good? I can just have this with a side of fries. And
but no, that's not how Ozempic works, right? Ozempic doesn't help you lose weight. Ozempic stops you wanting it. It stops cravings.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're not gonna you don't want the food to be. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
If they ever do come out with the drug that just takes weight off and allows you to eat whatever you feel like.
Go long McDonald's.
Go long McDonald's. In fact, you'll have to go a lot longer these days because the stores are much further apart, Thomas. All right, Thomas, finally on the show today, bands, music bands, rock bands, pop bands, decreasing.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, this chart here.
Bands.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like it doesn't necessarily say there's less bands, but this chart here we're looking at is the makeup of the Billboard Hot 100, the charts, and looking at whether the songs are coming from solo artists, collaborations, or from bands. And what it's saying, like between the 60s and mid 90s, it was about 50-50, 50% solo artists, 50% bands. But since 1994, bands have been heading straight down and now account for less than 5% of the top 100. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, wild, hey?
Yeah.
And like some of that's gone to solo artists, but a good chunk of it's gone to collaborations, which is sort of like
Splitting
just
hairs a bit, aren't we? Like,
a bit.
I mean,
Yeah.
collaboration. So is a collaboration two solo artists that got together, or is a collaboration a band? When two individuals come together, two or more, is that a collaboration, or have they just actually formed a band? And I mean, maybe people just stopped trying to think up band names because every band name under the sun's been taken now.
Hard to come up with a good band name now. Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's probably what's driving
we
it.
struggled with naming this podcast, let alone coming up with a band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
it is. I think I always thought. I mean, it's simpler if you're a solo artist, I guess. You know, you don't have all the band politics. You don't have.
Yeah.
You know, and it was. It's always the lead, the front person, lead singer. Like that's the band. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You can't. Not many that have survived losing the front person or the lead singer. If the drummer disappears, no one would even notice.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the drummers out there. But you've got to be pretty. I don't know. Like Block Party had a killer drummer. Maybe there's an exception. But yeah.
And I think that's probably. I think most bands are probably just a solo artist with a bunch of his mates. You know, like the songs are written by one dude or one woman, and then
Well,
so like I think
Dave
those people
Grohl made the first Foo Fighters album by just separately recording all of the separate tracks himself. He sang, did guitars, and played the drums, and then made this killer album. And then was like, I better tour it. So I better find some people to play these instruments because I can't do them all at once. Like, you know, but you take Dave Grohl out of the Foo Fighters and you haven't got a whole lot left. I know the others are celebrities in their own right to an extent, but there's not a whole lot left after Dave Grohl leaves the Foo Fighters.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So I reckon the Dave Grohls are now just going solo, and probably because they do get more creative control, more revenue control.
Yeah,
don't have to deal with the band. Can just swap out the drummer if he overdoses or something.
Yeah, and then we'll get AI. We won't even have a solo artist anymore. They'll just be just an AI bot that came up with a song.
Big collaborations. Dave Grohl and AI.
Dave.ai. I look forward to the musical future, Thomas. All right, that does it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in to CVE once again. Don't forget, Buy or Sell podcast from Equity Mates, which I host and I interview lots of interesting fund managers and investing experts, is back. First one out with Adam Dawes is released now, so go and check that out if you're interested in hearing some buy or sell tips for your stock portfolio. Other than that, that's it for us. So bye for now. See you next time.